All right, guys, welcome to hour number 2 of Wide Awake News Radio. I am your host, Charlie McGrath, 17th day of December, Monday. Joining us here in just a second is going to be Reginald from the Demcad channel on YouTube. So if you're not one of the 80 folks or so in the chat room and you want to join us there, you can go to wideawakenews.com, click on the Wide Awake Radio microphone in the right-hand corner, and that'll take you right into chat, and you can join the folks in there. From there, if you want to watch Reginald and I, because we're both live on video as well, you can access the Justin TV feed and watch us do the program live as well. All right, here's the deal. It's I just finished doing while Gary was hosting the first hour, and again, Alternative Energy Hour every Monday, 5 o'clock West, 8 o'clock East. You can hear Gary, or you can hear the Smart Scarecrow program every Thursday on Justin TV, and that begins at Gary. God dang it, I'm forgetting the time it begins. What is it?
9 o'clock Eastern Time.
9 East, okay. 9 o'clock Eastern Time on the Justin TV. Just type in Smart Scarecrow program, and you can listen to his program there as well. I was while he was doing the first hour tonight, I was on with Fabian for Liberty, and of course we're talking about this massacre, this disgusting event that happened in Connecticut. And I just want to say before I bring on Reginald and we continue. I'm sure it's going to dominate this hour, this topic. I want to say that, by no means anything that's said from this point on is meant to belittle the pain and the suffering of the people who have lost children, babies. I mean, this event is horrific, more horrific than anything I could ever imagine to have to go through. These people are going through, but we have to look at the information that's been given to us and how it's being presented to us and what's happening as a result of this yet another crisis event. Now, I put out a video on this topic last night. I was trying to stay away from it until the program tonight, but in watching the president come on and give his speech on it from Connecticut, and I was texting actually Eric Lovely during the speech the president was giving, and it started with the normal condolences that you'd expect in any kind of horrible situation. But when it led to the point of we as a nation are not doing enough to protect our children, and he's not going to stand by and watch another one of these events go without taking some kind of action moving forward, and promising that in the weeks to come that he was going to take some sort of action, and he never said it, but I can only assume this is in policy or legislation or executive order to thwart these kind of events from occurring. The light went on, and when you couple this with the bizarre facts behind this case, not only this case but other recent events, I think it paints a picture of what's coming next for the people of this country. We got to look at this situation through the prism of governed by crisis. We have 9/11. It brings us the Patriot Act, National Defense Authorization Act 2012, 2013, and all the other legislation and all the security build-out and all the military expansion that we've seen over the past decade, all in the guise of 9/11, all with the notion that we're going to strip freedom in order to give us some kind of protection. Then we see 2008, the same kind of crisis event, and we take these extraordinary measures in the name of protecting the people's financial future. And what we end up seeing happening every single time one of these big crisis event occurs, and the government goes in overdrive in order to, air quote, fix the problem, we end up losing freedom. We end up giving away more of our future to people that claim to be looking out for us. But every time we go through a crisis event and we get this legislation or we get this usurpation of our freedom, we end up in more and more of a controlled police state. And this is what I want to talk about with Reginald tonight. Reginald and I, him and I have been making videos talking on the topic of a tyrannical government and potential breakdown crisis for 4 years, for myself anyway, since 2008. And Reginald, first of all, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming back on. YouTube channel, Demcad. If you're not subscribing to him, please do so. He puts out tons of good information. Welcome back to the program, Reginald.
Thank you for having me. That's what it's about. It's about control.
Absolutely. And what I was going to say quickly there is, I know you have guns. because I've seen you do videos on them, and you know I have guns. And what terrifies me is the knee-jerk reaction, especially. Let's start with his mother. This sick individual's mother, who is now being turned into the poster woman for preppers. Right? She owns allegedly a Bushmaster AR-15 and some other semi-automatic handguns, and the media is painting her as a nut. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, did she own a gun safe? I'm just wondering, if she's supposedly a prepper. I mean, she clearly didn't prep enough.
Well, and I don't. The stuff that's coming out about her is again beyond bizarre. Initially reported that she was a teacher at this school. Now we find out she was never a teacher. Period. And there's connections that are being floated out there, of which I don't. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the media doesn't really care about facts anymore. I mean, they're always leaking out ridiculous information, whether it's true or not. You have people on national television speculating, oh, well, maybe it's this and maybe it's that. They are part of the corporate machine, and the corporate machine is a part of the same machine that controls the government. Okay, it's about control. These guys are there because they push forth a certain agenda. They're not there because they want to inform people. They're there to push forth a certain agenda that's all about controlling people. And by control, I mean you have corporate interests and government interests who want to control every aspect of your lives. It goes beyond gun rights. It goes beyond things like that. I mean, everything from when you go into college, okay, when you try to better yourself, when you try to get a degree, try to get a better job, they have it set up so that there's so much government money going into the system that tuition rates are artificially being pumped up that you can't get a degree without being in so much debt that you're pretty much an indentured servant. You're pretty much a slave by the time you get to graduation. So when you look at what's going on with the media and how they hype up things, none of it's really based in facts. It's all about everything's designed to spin things in a way to allow the government to control more of our activities, just take away more of our civil liberties, more of our freedom, and that's what I see. And it's so obvious how quickly people just go along with, oh yeah, we should ban guns. We should ban guns like that without even using their heads. And people do that because they don't know how to use their heads. They don't have the critical thinking skills anymore. And that's something that was a big part of the education system for a lot of people because, for example, in Detroit, there's like 7% of their 8th graders are proficient at reading, for crying out loud. There's a reason why. There's a reason why the people aren't able to think very well and they're easily manipulated. It's all a part of one grand system.
I agree. And there's been a lot of speculation since you and I have been on YouTube and in alternative media talking about this, that the end game will be grabbing the guns. It'll be, and I personally didn't think it would ever come. I've said in commentary videos before, I don't think that's part of the agenda because I think, they're just more than happy to let the people out here, eat each other and rip each other apart and blame each other for the condition we're in. Let us shoot up each other and then swoop in with this legislation and that's been put into place in order to put the boot heel onto the people. But it certainly doesn't. It certainly seems that I am wrong. I mean, it blows my mind that while the event was ongoing. Not immediately after, before they even knew how many people were dead in this event, we had petitions up at whitehouse.gov to implement stronger, tougher legislation on banning certain kinds. The verbiage of it goes something along the lines of we're misusing the Second Amendment. The gun lobby is forcing a misuse of the Second Amendment, and we need tougher legislation. So. I mean, it's an onslaught now, and it's only going to get worse, is my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the irony is that the gun control was the reason why we had so many people in such a vulnerable position in the first place.
That's a great point. And I'm going to kick it right back to when we come back from this break. We're going to be right back with Reginald, also known as Demcad from YouTube. More Wide Awake News Radio in just a few minutes, guys. Hang tight. Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. We have Reginald, also known as Demcad on YouTube, joining us tonight. Reginald, I posed a question to you during the break and right before the break about the governed by crisis mentality brought us the Patriot Act and everything you see now, right? When you go to travel somewhere, the drones flying around that may be flying around over your city, everything you see with the build out of the security industrial complex brought to you in governed by crisis mentality. 2008, same thing. Do you see this as just another crisis event that's going to be used to take away freedom and implement tyrannical control?
Well, don't forget the war on drugs.
Yeah.
The war on drugs, the war on poverty, all these wars, all these big, grand operations that turn out to be complete disasters. And of course, you mentioned 9/11, how we ended up with the Patriot Act and the Military Commissions Act, and now we have the National Defense Authorization Act. We just have more things being used to actually just take away our freedom, and it's like a death by 1,000 cuts, and that's what's happening in this country. Yeah. So and going back to the whole issue of more gun control. Gun control was what gave mass murdering people the opportunity, the platform to actually kill so many people. Simply put, these people always go to gun-free zones. Gun-free zones are supposedly these areas. Well, legally, you're not allowed to carry a firearm. Okay, so naturally, law-abiding citizens don't bring firearms into these gun-free zones. So when that happens, you create a target-rich environment for some lunatic who wants to shoot people. So, of course, when you have the biggest mass shootings, they always happen in gun-free zones. It's just common sense. You want to kill a bunch of innocent people, go to the one place people aren't going to have guns. For example, the Columbine, gun-free zone. Virginia Tech, gun-free zone. The Amish church shooting, gun-free zone. The Temple shooting, gun-free zone. Oregon Mall, was that a gun-free zone? The Connecticut school.
I don't know, but he was taken out. If what I read on that was right, he was taken out quickly by an ex-military sniper. So before that could blow up into a scores of people being killed. But you're 100% right. And the Aurora gun-free zone. gun-free zone. And people try to say that, just because people have guns to defend themselves, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make the situation better. Well, of course it's going to make the situation better, because we have examples of that exactly happening. In Colorado Springs, there was a situation where a woman at church, she was an ex-cop, security guard. There was a shooting, and she actually shot the guy. Okay, and there was another situation in Pearl, Mississippi, where an assistant school principal actually shot a shooter who went into the school and shot some people. There was a school dance, I think it's somewhere in Pennsylvania, where some kid shot somebody, or somebody shot like 4 people, and the dance hall owner actually acquired a shotgun and talked them down with his shotgun. So, the idea that these people you got to have a whole lot of training to take these guys out is not true. Because that woman who shot that guy in Colorado Springs, that woman who's at the church, actually she shot the guy, and the guy shot himself in the brain. The active shooter shot himself. He actually killed himself. So usually when people stand up to these guys, they fold. Well, absolutely. This kid's going into an elementary school. Obviously, he's looking for no resistance whatsoever. And if the principal would have been armed, or if a teacher would have been armed, this would have been over. This would have been over before it began. And the notion that we're gonna rally this horrific event into the destruction of the Second Amendment, and I even have written down quotes here. From these are a couple senators, Mark Warner and Joe Mattelin. These are Democrat senators who were pro-gun up until the event, and what they're saying is, this was a game-changing moment. Never before in the history of our nation have we seen our babies slaughtered. I believe Americans have a Second Amendment right and quote, I believe Americans have a Second Amendment right. The ability to hunt is deep in our culture, and these are the people that are going to give us the legislation. Or potentially
they were never pro-gun, obviously.
No, they were. They had both of these guys. Oh, go ahead.
They
Go ahead.
were lying. They were lying. That's
Yes.
what was happening. Okay, because when you actually listen to these people very carefully, you can tell quickly that they're not actually pro-gun. I know a lot of these politicians pretend to be pro-gun, but I can
Sure.
see right through it. Now, first of all, the Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. This hunting tradition that Obama was talking about during the debate. That's not why we had a Second Amendment. Okay, the people who created the Second Amendment because they realized that governments often get out of hand and become tyrannical and actually start to kill their own people, like they did in Nazi Germany, like they did in the Soviet Union with Stalin. They realized that was something that governments tend to do. So the best way for people to actually defend their right to speak out, to actually assemble, to have their own religion, was to have a gun to physically protect themselves from any type of tyrannical government. That's what the Second Amendment was actually about. And as far as the whole game changer thing, actually the war on drugs kills a lot more kids. Okay,
That's right.
Thousands of kids every single year. The war on drugs destroys people's lives. Okay, nonviolent offenders being tossed into prison, families being torn apart, non-violent offenders, okay, and people physically being killed over drugs because they're illegal, because of the system put in place by this government. Okay, you're talking about a game changer. Okay, what about Obama and the 176 kids who have been killed thanks to his drone program? Okay, unmanned aircrafts dropping bombs on people in Pakistan, children being killed, 176 kids killed because of this program. And according to a study by the New York University, and I think it's also Stanford, less than 2% of the casualties, less than 2% were considered high-level targets. Okay, so basically most of the people they're killing aren't even significant to their so-called cause. And then there's double strikes. They hit area, then they hit it again. So when the first responders go in to try to help people, then guess what happens? They get hit. Okay, but now these people want to talk about a game changer. Okay, what about Operation Fast and Furious? Where the United States government, under Obama's watch, it was part of his administration with Eric Holder, who should have been fired a long time ago. What about that program that actually encouraged gun dealers to sell guns to criminals so they can bring them across the border, so-called so they can track them? Well, actually, they did it so they can actually change gun policy. That was their actual plan, and they got busted for it. But fortunately, Republicans didn't really speak up about it, and not a lot of people actually talked about it. But anyway, they ended up getting hundreds of Mexicans killed, and at least two of those guns showed up at the crime scene of a murdered U.S. agent, Border Patrol agent, Brian Terry. But they want to talk about, preventing gun violence. These people are hypocrites and liars, and they're disgusting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I could let you go on all night on that. I don't usually we have a break, but it must have been so riveting. Brett must have silenced the break to let you go on because you're 100% right. When it comes to the case of this war on terror, the study that you're referring to, it's like 1 in 50 of the people that are killed are actually terrorists, right? The rest are, this is mom and pop who are living in some cesspool that we've destabilized the region, sitting down to hummus and whatever, and all of a sudden a hellfire goes off and splat, and we get this theatrical presentation by the president and by this leadership, sad and sorrow and mourning, but the crimes that we're committing, as Reginald alluded to, around the world, there's scores and scores and scores of kids every single day. And even in our own country, like you said, Reg, 2 million people in prison right now, 2 million people more in prison in this nation than China and India combined. And we're going to ready to just throw out the window the Second Amendment of the Constitution. It's absolutely mind-boggling, but that's exactly the path we are on.
And people are tolerating it. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the Republican leadership does. With Bonner, I don't trust him at all. We know. And look at who they nominated: Mitt Romney. That should tell you where they really stand. Mitt Romney. They nominated a guy who is flip-flopped so many times. He makes John Kerry look like some type of ideologue or something. Okay, they nominated a guy who signed an assault rifle ban. Okay, so that
Right.
gives you an idea of where they really lie. And then the NRA endorses the guy. So can you trust either of these parties? They show you their true colors in times like this. Yes, they try to change things to attack our freedoms, but the interesting thing is a lot of times when there's a crisis, they show their true colors. The bailouts, the banker bailouts, they showed you their true colors. And that's a positive in this. They show you what they're really about.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I guess we're skipping this break, Reg, so we'll just keep going on. But you're right. When it comes to stealing your freedom, your future, your financial future, or your destroying the Constitution, they have no problems working together. No problems at all. That's why we got the bailouts 2008. That's why we got the Patriot Act. And unfortunately, things continue the way it looks like it's going to continue. We will get some kind of legislation that makes it whatever, makes it impossible for you to buy a 11-round magazine or to buy, something that's deemed an assault weapon. I just want to read real quick here because, this is what we're talking about. We have all these pundits coming out talking about the meaning of, we're misrepresenting the Second Amendment and what it's all about. And it couldn't be smaller. I mean, I'm holding it up right now to the JTV audience. It's a half a paragraph, right? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Period. That's it. There's nothing in there about hunting or shooting sporting clays or shooting rabbits or whatever. And if you look into some of the writings of the forefathers, they understood the government was a government having a standing army. The only army that could defeat a tyrannical government with a standing army is a massive army of the free peoples who are bearing arms in order to guarantee their freedom of the right to bear arms. This isn't something that government can take from you. This is a right that is a common law right. This is just stating the common law fact that you have the right as a human being to defend yourself and to bear arms against a tyrannical government. Zero to do with anything else about hunting or self-defense for burglars or any other argument that can be made can be thrown out the window. It is for a nation to remain free, for peoples to remain free. Their right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
Absolutely. But see, a lot of people don't understand the Constitution. So when you try to explain things like that to them, they're completely ignorant of that. They don't have any interest in learning things like that.
No doubt. I want to jump. I was going to take this on this after the break, but since we're not having one, where you talked about the number of people who were incarcerated, the number of people killed because of the war on terror, the number of people killed because of the war on drugs. In this country, every single year, we have 443,000 Americans die because of smoking-related illness. Now, smoking has become less popular, but smoking is a huge moneymaker, right, for a lot of political campaigns, and there's a lot of money flowing to D.C. from this lobby. So why aren't we having this all-out war on smoking? 27 people die every single day because of drunk driving. Now, to me, there's more people dying in this nation because of drunk driving than there is because of gun-related violent crimes. Yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah. Talk about that, Rich.
Well, it's really the same war. The war on property, the war on drugs, the war on terrorism, all these wars. It's the war on the people. It's always been the same type of war. It's always the same war. It's a war on the people. They say we're going to attack something. We're going to attack something. And what do they end up doing? Attacking the people. So they're not interested in empowering people. They're not interested in safety whatsoever. Okay, because they ignore entire industries that do things that compromise the safety of people every single day. That's but right. But they don't really care about that. So, like I said, they reveal their true colors. They do it all of the time. They don't want to talk about the pollutants. They don't want to talk about the dangerous products that a lot of corporations put out there on the market that kill far more people than violent crimes. But they don't want to talk about pharmaceuticals and a lot of that stuff that ends up killing people. They don't want to talk about the legal drugs, the legal dope.
Right, that these murderers are on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Some kind of psychotropic drug that some shrink has these kids on that end up, and just so happens, we didn't even get into this yet, so let's get into it. The connections, right? The connections between this shooter and I'm just going to go back to the Columbine, or not the Columbine, the Aurora shooting, are unbelievable. I don't know if you had a chance to do much research in this, but just for the highlights, the father of this Adam Lanza is Peter Lanza. He happens to be a vice president from a GE Financial Tax Division. GE Financial, a company that received billions upon billions of dollars of bailout. One of the top beneficiaries of the bailouts in 2008.
Is he a whistleblower by chance?
No, but he was scheduled to testify before LIBOR.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that a coincidence?
Yeah.
Are we talking about the Aurora guy?
No. We're talking about both of them. We're talking about both. Yeah. And Fabian for Liberty, I'm quoting him as the source on this because he's got some connections of people that are actually setting up these Senate hearings on LIBOR scandal, and this guy apparently, Peter Lanza, GE Financial Tax Division, vice president of it, was slated to testify in LIBOR. His kid, doped up because he's got issues, goes in and kills a bunch of babies. And we got Robert Holmes, the father of James Holmes in Aurora, who was a top scientist for FICO, definitely verified 100% testify to go before and testify on the LIBOR scandal. So, Reg, do you ever stop and think of you and I can't win the lottery, but the odds of these events being connected vis-a-vis the LIBOR scandal, this has got to be like winning the Powerball multiple times in a row. The odds have got to be astronomical.
See, I don't think LIBOR is over with. I think we're going to learn more about LIBOR. I think it's going to come out even more in 2013. I think there must be if this is actually true with both. Well, we know with the Aurora, but if we actually have this, if this connection is actually solid, then I guess it means that there's something. It's possible there's something really big going on with LIBOR, because the chances of this just being a coincidence is just ridiculously small. It's
impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah. So we have what? Legal dope, that's what I call it. Legal narcotics. Okay, let's not spin this. Okay, legal dope, and we have LIBOR.
Yeah.
How can you ignore that? How can you possibly ignore that?
We're not. But unfortunately, the mainstream is going to show you a candlelight vigil and a lot of grieving people, and then say we need to. We don't. This is the problem that I think that most Americans have, is we don't look at events in totality, right? We don't look at our circumstances in totality. We look at little slices.
Yes, and that's something that David Icke was talking about. Whether you think he's crazy or not, it's really interesting. A lot of the stuff he says actually makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels. I think it's because this is the way that we're conditioned. We're not conditioned to see the big picture. We're not conditioned to, I say conditioned because that's how we are. We're conditioned. A lot of us are conditioned. We're not conditioned or educated to actually have critical thinking skills. You notice a lot of things with Americans, not with all of us obviously, but certain characteristics keep popping up over and over. And you notice this with this whole education system, this whole programming. You notice that people aren't able to really comprehend paragraphs and information a lot of times. Like I'll say, I feel, well, my experience is that with most people, such as this, and they only pick up on certain words, and they don't really have much of ability to listen. But
no, that's critical thinking is what you're talking about, and we'll pick up with that. We have to take this break, so we'll be back in about 3.5 minutes with Reginald Demcad from YouTube. Guys, hang tight. We'll be right back. I know you get frustrated.
Every other one is good.
Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath along with Reginald from the Demcad channel on YouTube. Please check it out and subscribe to him if you haven't, because he's been doing this a while and he puts out tons and tons of good information. Quickly, we want to talk a little bit about LIBOR and financial issues to round out the program. But I told Reginald during the break I kind of wanted to talk about something on this issue of the Connecticut shooting, gun control, that isn't really being talked about much, even in alternative media, and that is obviously that the Second Amendment is coming under fire. That very brief paragraph that ensures you that the government will uphold its duty and not infringe upon your God-given right to bear arms. But what else is coming under attack is the First Amendment, and what I mean by that is with the announcement of the need to protect our children. Not only has it been gun control, but it's been mental health. Mental health is being put out into the mainstream as a top-going concern. Now, of course, mentally unstable people should not be buying firearms, or should not be. If they're mentally unstable, they need to be dealt with and cared for. But we got to remember, when you hear things like terrorist, belligerent actor, or mental health issue, you better understand what they're talking about, because we happen to live in a generation, a recent generation, that understands now that if you are a returning war veteran, you might be considered a terrorist or mentally unstable. If you're a Ron Paul supporter, you might be considered a terrorist or mentally unstable. Now, this coinciding with the fact that this kid's mother is being labeled as a doomsday prepper nut job because she had guns and was concerned about a potential financial collapse of the economy, and she's being painted as a wacko, ought to tell you something. That mental health, when that verbiage is put out in the mainstream, that most people in this community, most people that question authority, most people that want to hold on to their Second Amendment rights, could be labeled into this category of not being able to participate in buying a gun, or in a lot of cases, we see the description of people that could be potential terrorists be extremely vague. You give material support to Al Qaeda or a group that does support Al Qaeda, or give them any kind of support whatsoever. Well, what's to say coming on here talking about the illegal wars that are being waged in our name isn't support to the enemy? See, my point is this. We're seeing a direct assault on the Second Amendment, but when they start talking about, mentally fit to own weaponry, and when we know that we live in a society and we're governed by crisis, that legislation in a lot of cases is written behind closed doors, and the Constitution is the last thing on their mind when they write it. And if that doesn't do it, we also know that we have the president's office that has the ability to write executive orders, putting basically anything that they want in there in the name of security and safety. So, Reginald, the aspect of Second Amendment obviously in our face, but the notion of just because, Reginald, you're a prepper, you are concerned about a potential collapse, you're concerned about tyrannical government, this could get you labeled in a category that makes it not only you a potential terrorist, but makes it a necessity for the strong-armed tyrannical government to come in and disarm you.
Well, it's a side way, it's a backdoor way of taking away people's rights. You just label them as crazy, and who can argue with that? The guy is crazy. He's against the system, or for whatever reason he's crazy. Therefore, we should do this and that to this person. It's been done in history. When you look at the Soviet Union, you look at other countries, it's been done before. So this isn't far-fetched at all. And it's definitely something that concerns me. But the way I see it is, if a government's going to go down this route, it's not. I don't see the point in hiding and remaining silent. I don't see how that's going to protect me. I think it's better to speak up and point out what's happening, point to the fire, than to try to close my eyes and pretend like there's no smoke.
No doubt about it. I couldn't have said it better. And smoke, indeed, there is. And if you want to remain safe for a little bit longer, the answer is simple. Stop listening to this program or ones like it, or to Reginald's channel. Bury your head in the sand and hope it all just goes away. And, you might get a few more months, maybe a few more years of living in a fantasy. But in reality, this is all going to come home to roost in a big way across this planet. And let's get into the topic that could be very much a catalyst in bringing us this massive crisis. You and I talked about a little bit with this LIBOR situation. Here's the LIBOR situation, the rigging, the scandal, and I want to get Reginald's the stealing. You have trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars in contracts. The rates that the banks do business with one another, the LIBOR rate, has been rigged. This isn't speculation. HSBC has already been fined nearly $2 billion. 3 of its individuals have been arrested. It isn't speculation. It has been rigged in the favor of the banks. If this blows up and the derivatives that are a result of this start to implode, folks, it's over. It is absolutely game over. Trillions upon trillions of dollars we're talking about. We're not talking about a few billion here, a few billion there. We're talking about enough money to absolutely freeze and cease and desist the markets as we know it, commerce as we know it. This is a trigger event that you could wake up tomorrow and realize that your bank is not only on bank holiday, but your ATMs don't work, and that everything you have in the form of wealth in paper assets is gone. Reginald?
Well, this is part of the reason why you want to have a backup plan. This is part of the reason why you have to have something else going on other than just the financial stuff, just the paper, because the system is not only the derivatives, it's not only the fraud, the stealing, the system itself. It's centered around that now. It's not just Apple becoming rotten. It's like it's more rot than Apple now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the type of system we're really dealing with. And when you have this type of scenario, you have to say to yourself, what am I going to do when this falls apart? So this is part of the reason why I encourage people to prep. Because sooner or later, it's all going to come tumbling down. The system is insolvent. There's too much corruption, too much stealing. And when people find out what's been going on behind the scenes, it's over. It's absolutely over.
All right, let me ask you this with about 4 minutes left. Let's tie it with the obvious question. We're not going to have you on again probably before the end of the world on Friday. And probably if the world isn't over on Friday, this is probably the last time we have you on in 2012. What do you see coming forward? You and I were talking during the break about some interesting economic data that shows where we really are. But first of all, do you think the 2012 prediction is coming true on Friday? Second of all, if it doesn't, where do you see 2013 shaping up to be?
No, I don't see the world coming to the end on December 21st. What I do see, and it's already forming right now, I see another contraction in the economy so obvious that it's even going to show up. It's even going to show up in the official numbers. That's what I see as far as the actual economy. And I think we're more likely to actually go to war this time. Last year I said I didn't think we were going to go to war during this year. I think we're more likely to go to war. I think we're more likely to have a situation with Iran. We're more likely to have that big war because now the whole political cycle is behind us. So those are some of the things I definitely see. I definitely see the federal tax revenues dropping. They can raise taxes all they want. It's not going to save them at all, not if they don't have enough people actually generating cash and actually generating wealth. So higher unemployment, federal tax revenues will drop dramatically. The deficit will grow significantly. The LIBOR scandal would explode, and we may have a bond market crisis. Other than that, I'm looking forward to the next season of Glee or something.
Well, let me tell you, I'm trying to think of any one of the events that you just talked about that couldn't spark, any one of them all by themselves could spark a major collapse. I honestly think, I don't think a deal is going to be done on the fiscal cliff, even though Huffington Post, while we're doing this interview, they posted a story saying the president has now changed his mind, and now $400,000, anything from there and below will not see an increase in tax. I don't see a deal being done. Excuse me. I don't see a deal being done there, which brings us to these automatic triggers that kick in, automatic austerity, which is going to compound an already dying economy. It's going to compound the pain. And so I think early in 2013, if the Mayans were wrong, early in 2013, we have this realization that the planet, the globe, especially the West, is not in recession, it's in depression. And then the people are going to be made to shoulder the burden for it. we'll hear more speeches by more politicians saying it's time for us all to knuckle down and try to get this debt crisis under control. And, with this will come more unemployment, more civil unrest, and more tyrannical control. One thing I wanted to end with is, making this lady out to be a nut because she's a prepper. Let's not forget, your government is the biggest prepper of all. This is why, Department of Homeland Security has millions, if not billions, of rounds of ammunition. Social Security Administration, NOAA, they're all gearing up for something. So they're prepping. So don't think for 1 second that even though the mainstream media is going to label you as a nut for doing so, do it, because the government most certainly is. Reginald? And
they're doing it with your money.
That's right.
That was just exactly really classic right there. So
yeah, don't pay. Don't follow our lead just because we're prepping for massive civil unrest and potentially even civil war. Just pretend everything's okay because the beer's flowing and the lights are on.
Well, yeah, I mean. But a lot of people are going to keep that mentality. They're going to think, well, the lights are on, the beer is here, and systems are working, so therefore they're going to work tomorrow, and they're always going to work. And a lot of people are not going to be prepared at all. So I tell people the basics. Make sure you have enough water, extra water, food, a way of filtering water, and the medical things you need to stay alive. The necessities.
Amen. Amen, Reginald. Keep up the good work. Demcad on YouTube. Go over there and subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. Demcad, Reginald, thank you very much. I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight, and we'll get you back on next month. Hopefully, if the world doesn't come to an end Friday.
All right.
All right, buddy. Guys, stay tuned because Jeff Rintz is coming up next. Tomorrow night's program is myself and Eric Lovely, and you can be really rest assured that he is plenty pissed off. Sherry Sander Kelly is also joining us for hour number 2. So, guys, we'll see you tomorrow night at the same time. And, again, please enjoy Jeff. He's coming up next. Have a good night. Peace.